I'm going to show you how I restore cast iron cookware. There's definitely more than one method that you can use to do this. Everything from using your self-cleaning oven to soaking it in a bucket of sodium hydroxide or even electrolysis. I particularly prefer using the oven cleaner method. The oven cleaner method is fairly safe. It's very effective. The only drawback is it takes more time. But I'm never in a situation where I'm trying to do this and have it done in 2 hours. Basically, it involves spraying the oven cleaner on the cookware, letting it sit inside of a garbage bag for about a day, and then you take it out and see what steps you need to do next. On this particular piece, we're going to do 2 cycles of spraying it with oven cleaner and letting it sit for a day. And then we're going to start with doing a little bit of manual scrubbing in between the cycles of letting it sit with the oven cleaner on it. And normally that's not something you have to do on a lot of pieces, but this piece is very old. It's from, I'm not 100% positive because there's no markings on this particular piece, but it appears to be a Birmingham Stove Range company piece of cookware. And since there's no markings, I'm thinking that it's probably from the early 60s or maybe a little before. So it's had a long life and a lot of use, and it's really time to break it down and get it back into the condition that I want it to be in. This piece actually belonged to my grandmother who passed away, and she had a fair amount of cast iron cookware, and most of the things that she had I already had, you know, Dutch ovens and skillets and all that. So the only thing I didn't have was a chicken fryer. And so I definitely wanted to get this piece and bring it back to as new as possible. Now you have to remember, when you're dealing with 50 or 60-year-old cast iron, even when you get it done and finished and you're ready to season it, it's never going to look brand new because it's just not going to happen. But I think when you see what this piece looks like towards the end of the video, you're going to be very surprised, because cast iron is just so durable and it holds up so well. You know, the only things that really hurt cast iron generally are if they're cracked, or if they're so rusted that they get pitting or anything like that. Later on in the video, I did find a couple little pits on here, but I'm not sure because there's really not much rust on it. So I think that may have just been something from the manufacturing. But the piece, like I said, because it's probably 60 years old or so, is really in pretty good condition considering. The outside of it has a lot of caked up grease from over the years, almost like it was used maybe outside in a fire. I'm not sure. But we're going to get this back to almost brand new, and we're going to be using it, and you're going to see just how easy it really is. Alright, so here's after it's sitting for 24 hours. We actually didn't do the top of the lid because we only had a little bit of oven cleaner left from a previous restoration that we did. But it really wasn't bad, so it didn't matter. But you can see how much gunk is already coming off just after 24 hours. Alright, it's time to spray it down again. This time we're using a different brand oven cleaner. I've never really found too much difference in the oven cleaner brands and how good they work. Really, it comes down to me to how good they foam when they come out, so you get pretty good coverage. Some people say you need to put it in a black garbage bag. I don't really find the color of the bag matters. Over the years, I've used everything from black, white, brown, green, silver. You know, it doesn't really matter. Just all you're wanting to do is keep the oven cleaner from drying for as long as possible. So the color of the bag's not really going to be a huge factor in the whole grand scheme of things. Alright, so after the second cycle of letting it sit, I'm basically going to use some warm water with some dish detergent in it, stainless steel scrubbers. We get these 2 for $1 at Dollar Tree, and a scrub sponge. You could probably use steel wool if you had it. These are just what I've always used. One more thing that I'm going to use on this particular piece of cookware that I don't normally have to use is a scraper, a plastic scraper. I don't use metal because I don't want to really gouge or dig into the metal. But there are some places on here where the crud is really thick, and I'm going to have to use a scraper on that. And also around the rim of the lid where you get a lot of buildup, the scraper will help get some of that off too. But now that we've had a couple cycles of just using the oven cleaner, the basic process that I'm going to use is I'm going to dip the stainless steel scrubber in the soapy water, and I'm going to go over everything with it. I'm not really using a lot of pressure. I'm just trying to knock loose what the oven cleaner has already kind of pulled from the surface. And then after I use the stainless steel scrubber, I'll go over it with the green part of the scrub sponge. I'm spraying it here, not to put it back in the garbage bag just yet, but I'm going to work on the lid a little bit. And since there's such a heavy buildup on the inside walls of this particular piece, I'm going to let it sit for just a few minutes and hopefully try to get some of that to break free before we end up spraying it again and letting it sit for another day. At this point, it was about all we could do was just let it soak for another day. Because while some stuff was coming off just from letting it sit for about 5 or 10 minutes, it wasn't enough to really make that much of a difference. So this right here is our third day of soaking, and you can see that it's really starting to come off. All the crud's starting to come off at this point. Even those big thick areas are scraping free right now. And remember, I'm not really digging into the metal with the scrubber. I'm letting the oven cleaner do the work. This is just to help give it a little extra agitation to help knock it free. Still have a little bit more on there. We were actually hoping that this would be the last soaking that we would have to do, but as it turns out, we were going to have to let it sit for one more day to finish off some of the really thick crusted on stuff. Alright, after the fourth soak, we're finally going to be done and ready to get this thing seasoned. You can see just how good it's looking now, and how much of this, the years and years of built on stuff and the crud and the oils and the fats have now just been emulsified. I know there's some dark spots on here that they look like rust, and I'm not really sure why the camera makes it look like that, but when we get done, there was actually no rust left on the pots. So some of those areas, they may have been, I don't know, something from just heat or something like that, but there was no rust on the pot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to rinse it off. We're going to get as much of just the oven cleaner, anything else on the pot off. We're also going to neutralize it with some distilled vinegar. One thing that you want to do is, if you're going to use vinegar to help neutralize the lye in the oven cleaner, is you want to spray it off with water first. You don't want to put vinegar on a pot that has a lot of oven cleaner on it, because it'll cause an exothermal reaction. You can see right here, that's the pitting that I was talking about earlier, but I think it's just from the manufacturing of it. But you want to be sure and rinse it off good with water first, and then use your vinegar. And honestly, I don't even know if it's really necessary to use the vinegar. I've read a lot of stuff saying that it's not necessary to use it to help neutralize it. But in the end, it's had a lot of oven cleaner on it, so it's not going to hurt to use the vinegar. And that way I'm 100% sure that any of the lye in there has been neutralized. I'm basically going to use a mixture of 50-50 distilled vinegar and water. I'm just going to be sure all the surfaces of the cookware are contacted by the vinegar, to be sure everything is neutralized. And there it is. The pot's done, and it's ready to be seasoned.